Facebook and YouTube world. It's good to be back with you again. This is the Hudson Connection. I am Dr. Pastor Hudson, Tamara Hudson. This is my lovely wife, Jamie Hudson. What we call her Lady Hudson. And so we're excited on today. And also, this is a serious discussion that we're going to have today. As compared to when we had our last video where we discussed some specifics about marriage. This is still about marriage, but we're going to be discussing depression today, actually, within the marriage and as an individual within the marriage. And we just want to get my wife's perspective on her situation and how she handled depression, how she noticed that she was in that spot, and then on my part, sort of the unawareness of her going through that particular episode and how she has to continue to stay healthy and really allow her faith to guide her during the difficult times. And so I'm going to lead the discussion today, and we pray that whatever is said today will it be able to encourage your hearts, whoever is going through depression, whether it's through a marriage or whether it's through sort of an individual family episode, and to know that you have some other individuals out there, you have some examples out there, you have help as well. And so we pray that whatever is said today will be a blessing to you and to your family, to anyone that is actually going through depression. So as we know, there are probably just different phases of depression as well. You can have it through mental illness as one, and then you can have it as a way through hardships, difficult times, challenging times, and we are in one of those challenging times with COVID-19. And so a number of different people are experiencing depression as a result of isolation. And as we know, depression can lead to a dark place, and leading to that dark place allow you to take your life. And so we don't want that. We don't want anyone to be in a position where they feel as though they have to take their life and that there's nothing out there for them to live for. And we want to encourage you and let you know that there's a purpose and a destiny that you have to live out, and we hope that you don't cut that destiny and that purpose short. And so we're going to really get into it, and hopefully this will be something that can challenge you and then at the same time encourage you as well. Amen. All right, we're going to get right into it. Well, so my to be transparent, my wife did experience some depression, and she's going to give you sort of the layout of how she got to that point, what transpired, and how does she sort of notice that she was in that place. And then I'll indicate to you how I was just quite unaware, and it was through a situation at my church that I found out that she was going through depression. And so I'll try to highlight some things from a husband perspective as to, try to become as much aware and being really focused within the relationship so that you can see the signals and try to be there, for your spouse. Okay. So just go ahead and you can give your impression about how you got to that place, and give some little background for yourself, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So I have I do a lot of research, and I've always been an avid reader since elementary school, since I learned how to read, and I was always about self-help, self-care, and making sure that I knew everything about my body, absolutely, I knew everything that was going on with my body and how to deal with it. And when my husband and I got married, I remember thinking, well, actually, backtrack a little bit, as early as my teenage years, I could remember like having coping skills to kind of help regulate my mind and my mental health. And I had no idea that that's nothing but the power of God, and he will give you wisdom. God will give you wisdom into how you to lead your life. And one of the things that I have always done was run. I used to get out and do lots of exercising, and I would either go for a walk after, our family went for a walk after dinner, or when I got into high school, I used to run track for a little while. And so I was an avid runner, and I had no idea at the time that running or any type of exercise was great for your body. It releases healthy endorphins in your mind and in your brain. And so your body has all these wonderful endorphins in your body and these chemical releases, and that raises the ability, the happy hormones?
Endorphins.
Happy endorphins, yes. So I had no idea that I was self-medicating myself by doing that. So there are other avenues where people self-medicate that are negative, getting into, smoking or drug abuse, alcohol abuse. There are other avenues,
promiscuity.
Yes,
Yeah.
promiscuity.
Yeah.
There are other avenues that people use to self-medicate.
Promiscuous.
Yes, a promiscuous lifestyle.
Yeah.
But that was just, at this time, my relationship with the Lord, I was establishing it, and I was a teenager. So I honestly believe that Jesus saved me at that time, just to have the self-awareness to start running and to kind of keep doing that. Now, when I got married in my early 20s, at this point, I had stopped running, and I was journaling a little bit, and that is definitely another avenue for mental clarity. But I had also stopped journaling. So there were two things that I was actively doing in my life: running, exercising, journaling, that I had completely stopped doing. And when I got married, there was a lot of changes. I moved out of my parents' house. About 6 months after we got married, we were pregnant with Elijah.
Yeah.
So my body was changing. There was a lot going on. Also, within the first year of our marriage, I got laid off on my job, a job that I was working as an installer for a contracting company that paid my way through college. I was making really good money. And so I no longer had those elements in my life to help me feel balanced. And this was all new territory, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so, as time went on, we had Elijah, we moved to a new state, we moved to Maryland, and once again, lots of changes. And at this point in my life, we were dealing with Elijah, and he was having a lot of ear infections, and he was crying a lot. Elijah had a lot of internal things that he was dealing with that we didn't know as young parents, new parents, and we had no idea he was predisposed to this genetic disorder called Fragile X. So Elijah's dealing with that, and we're dealing with what he's dealing with and not being able to properly treat him, and therefore I wasn't properly able to treat myself because I was kind of just winging it. It wasn't until we found out that Elijah had a Fragile X diagnosis that through the time period we actually went to the Mind Institute in California, and the ladies that were there, the doctors, were asking us questions. And do you remember that? She was asking me questions like, have you ever been
I
suicidal?
wasn't in a room with you when she was actually.
Oh, okay. Well, she was asking me very thought-provoking questions. And it was literally at that time where I was thinking, okay, maybe I, am dealing with something here. And she was talking about, okay, yes, I had increased levels of anxiety. I had increased levels of, my appetite was all over the place. My weight gain was all over the place. I had headaches. I was fatigued. I wanted to sleep, and I didn't know why I wanted to sleep more than the normal 8 hours. I was, the joke in my family growing up was I reminded them of the Cheshire Cat just because, easy going.
She loves to sleep.
Nice little nap here and there. But honestly, it's like the normal 8 hours. My body requires 8 hours.
Yeah.
So funny, but funny guy.
Well,
your body only requires 4 to 6 hours.
And I get up quite early. I'm ready to go.
Yes.
And
the Energizer Bunny. Go.
Just, so yeah, my body is routinely set up to get up and go.
Yes. So. And mine is different, which is okay. We balance each other out. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, early on it was just frustrating though.
Yes,
it was.
It was. Okay. But moving on. I had a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of anxiousness, hopelessness, sadness. And when that prolongs for more than 2 weeks of your life, that is a clear indication that something is wrong and you need to seek treatment. The CDC reports that 19 million Americans are dealing with some type of mental depression or mental anguish, and 7.6% of them are African Americans, and those are the ones have actually sought out treatment. And it's such a stigma in our culture not to seek medical treatment, whether it's for insurance purposes or just because Black women are supposed to be so strong culturally. We had to be the strong ones in the family. So we generally do not secure our own mask. We don't secure ourselves first before we secure someone else. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we are okay so we can take care of our family or we can pour into someone else. And that's not only in the mental aspect, but that's also in the spiritual aspect and the physical aspect. As a mother, as a wife, as a leader, how can I help someone else if I'm mentally not okay? So literally when I was at that doctor's office, all of this was kind of being thrown at me, all these questions, and I was really thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff here. I am overwhelmed. I do have concentration issues. I am, trying to balance this out and raise my son who has special needs, and it is a lot. And she wanted me to get on medication, and I was so like, no, I pumped the brakes. I don't want to be on any medication. I don't need medication. Depression, big taboo. That's not who I am. I'm always happy. I choose to be happy. And well, yeah, you can think yourself into a great situation. You can think yourself happy, but when you have a chemical imbalance, that needs to be medically taken care of. And I had a chemical imbalance, and thinking myself happy was not working. I needed more help, and I needed to recognize that I needed more help. And so I did. I got on a medication called Zoloft. It was a low dose. I took it for a few years. And with that medication, you have to take it at a steady stream. Like you continuously have to take it or it loses its effectability. And it's like a buildup in your system. And so I was taking it and I noticed that, well, yeah, it's working. But I did not like the way that it made me feel. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember. I just noticed that, from the beginning, you just never like taking medications. But And then after he was like, oh, I don't like the way it makes me feel. And so
it affects your libido.
Yeah, it did. It did. So your sex drive would decrease
dramatically.
Yeah, dramatically.
Non-existent.
And so you got to try to find that balance. But it's better for her to be healthy than for you know, to be in a situation where you just want to just be consumed by the sex drive. Get healthy first, and then that'll take care of itself. But I think I don't know. She can speak to it, but I think she was taking it off and on.
And that was the other issue. In my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to try and help this out. So to help it out, I decided I'm only going to take it on certain days of the week. And, well, no, you have to have a steady stream with that type of medication in your body. And so I was kind of chopping it all up all over the place. And then I decided, okay, I need to focus in and find out what really works for my body. And the Lord brought me back to remember, okay, Jamie, when you were young or younger, you used to run and you used to write. And that really helped you. And so I started running, and literally I was running like 3 miles a day. And I was doing it also in conjunction to kind of lose weight, which was hilarious because it wasn't working. But I actually it did help my mental clarity. It did help me feel better. And I noticed that my body was reacting to getting that type of exercise. So whether I'm running, walking, whatever, 30 minutes of exercise per day, I knew that's what I needed. And in addition to writing, I had to get my thoughts out. I had to have peace of mind. And another powerful avenue is prayer. Settling yourself down, and I meditate on the scriptures, and I would just quiet my mind and focus in. And that can take place anywhere, literally in your car, outside, walking around, in the grocery store shopping. I could be reciting a scripture in my brain, just, you know, in mode, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But the most important thing was to quiet my mind and stop myself and just settle my spirit. And that tremendously has helped.
Yeah. So I wanted to take a step back and really see where the depression, did it start prior to marriage? See, because I want to give you guys a sort of layout. So as many of you may not know, she also has what they call the premutation with Fragile X. So that in and of itself is an overlay with the anxiety. So when you get that overlays the anxiety, and now you're entering into a new phase of your life. We're married, and then 6 months down the line, we have a child, we have new parents. And so now that's in addition to what she already has that she didn't know that she had, actually. And then, you know, throughout the year, trying to deal with capturing our newborn's situation, meaning trying to figure out why he wasn't really making significant progress in terms of the milestones. He was making some, but there was some areas, significant areas of concern that we had. You know, his motor skills were off. He obviously wasn't talking, and so that really raised a red flag. And then also he had like significant amount of ear infection. But then, you know, as we continue, so you're like on this treadmill and you're like moving along. And she had miscarriages. She had several miscarriages. And then on top of that, we had some other situations that arose as well. And then, so all of that is actually prior to the time that she ended up having her aneurysm, her subarachnoid hemorrhage. And so now you got several phases that you're dealing with. You're still on this treadmill prior to that. So, I mean, obviously, I was the only one working at the time, and so it was quite difficult. But I'll get to me later in terms of what I want to do, what I felt actually, or didn't feel, or I wasn't aware. So speak to the different phases. Was depression prior to, or was depression? Did you notice it when we got married? You said you lost your job.
Yeah.
Right.
I did.
And so
Yeah.
was that just transient, meaning that depression came in and then it left and you were okay, or was it an ongoing position in your life that it just gradually got worse because we got married? You wanted to, I remember, we were having some arguments about you wanted to have a kid, I wanted to wait. I was still in school, trying to finish school and everything. We didn't have money. To
this day, he does not believe,
Yeah.
but we did have an argument about having kids. And I have been praying about it. And I will never forget, the Lord gave me this dream of this little baby and having this immense amount of love for this newborn baby. And then we have been having discussions about this. And
it was pressure.
It was pressure. But here's the funny thing.
Well, it wasn't like I didn't want to have kids.
The middle of the night, you do not remember this, but he did this. He woke up in the middle of the night, looked at me and said, "Now is the appropriate time to have a baby," and turned over and went back to sleep. And I was furious with you. I laid in that bed and I was furious. I was so mad, and I was, "No, he isn't. I can't believe he said that. We've been arguing about this and he said that to me." And I'm just like, what in the world? Just a flip-flopper.
He
doesn't remember that.
And I don't think
he really did that.
She said I did it. Yeah, it had to be God because my mind was set. My mind was set. I was in school. We were in school. I'm a pragmatist at heart. But when you're dealing with God, yes, there's some pragmatism in the word, but then it's His plan as well. It's at His appointed time. Yeah, and so He just moved my disposition out of the way, and I guess He placed His in there. And
here's Elijah.
And here comes Elijah. Yeah. And so I guess when she said I want a dog, I guess I should have listened.
I did. I asked for a dog.
Yeah, for a dog.
I did. I said, let's have a dog.
Just have a dog. I guess that was the key. But I'm really grateful that we did. We had Elijah. And we had additional kids as well. So that's been a blessing. But I want to go back to the question. When did the depression come about, or when did you really notice it? So this is a retrospective look back at, when did the depression sort of happen? Did it happen in different phases? Because as we all know, once you have a kid, there is also depression that can arise from there. So postpartum depression is one of the areas also of concern with mothers after they give birth. And so, in that aspect, you had several situations going on in your life that could have induced the amount of depression that you experienced.
Yeah. I do remember, yes, that was definitely a clear time in my life where after I had Elijah, I felt extremely overwhelmed. And I feel like most of my life I've kind of dealt with in and out of depression, although I had coping mechanisms.
Right. Okay.
And those coping mechanisms helped me to overcome. It wasn't until I stopped wholeheartedly doing the coping mechanisms, which was journaling. I stopped journaling after we got married. Like, I was an avid journaler. I had books, I still have them, of, just constantly writing. And that mental clarity really, really helped me. And then also exercising. It's funny how when you get a car, sometimes that changes your, how you do things in life, because I didn't have a car until I was 21. So I was either walking somewhere or, exercising a lot, but I was always walking for public transportation. And so when I got a car at 21, which is right after kind of we met.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so, yeah, I wasn't really walking as much anymore, and I wasn't running either. So, yeah, that it was a cute car too.
Yeah, which we had to get rid of. It wasn't a family car. Put it that way.
It was a sports car.
It was a sports car.
Yeah, the Lord gave it to me though. It was great.
Yeah. So you're saying that so you had different phases of depression.
I did, definitely. And after we got married and then had Elijah, and compounding all the things that we were dealing with Elijah, balancing that out, the money issues, balancing that out, not using my coping mechanisms, 1 of journaling, 2 of exercising. Yeah, I definitely had waves. And then when we had the miscarriage, that was such a low, and it was so hard for me to comprehend. And I guess it was so compounding for me because in my mind, I really didn't want to have another child right away. And that weekend I had went to a store, and I was walking around the store and found myself in the maternity section of the store. And I vividly remember thinking, oh, Lord, you have me in this maternity section of the store. I guess I'll accept the fact that, we have another child coming. And okay, so I made that mental decision in my mind on a Saturday. Sunday we go to church, and after service we go visit someone in the hospital, and it was on the way home that I remembered feeling this immense amount of pain in my back, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just cramps or whatever, but I remember thinking I could barely get out of the car, and I didn't want to bother my husband. I didn't want to bother anyone, so I just, made my way to the bed, got in the bed, and laid flat. And I remember thinking, I'll feel better in the morning if I just lay here. I'm probably just tired. But the next morning, which happened to be also the same day that we were going to find out the test results for Elijah, I get up and I go into the bathroom, and I wasn't in as much pain anymore. But then I remember looking into the toilet and like, oh my gosh, there is there was a sac. I knew I had miscarried, but I didn't. It was so hard for me to comprehend all that. And then we go to the doctor's office this very same day, and we find out Elijah has a genetic disorder, and it's called Fragile X. And it was the same day. And in my mind, I was like, Lord, I know why all this happened, it was so systematic of how it happened. Had I have found out that I was a carrier for Fragile X, because Elijah had to get it from someone, it's passed down from the family. Had I found that out and been carrying a child physically, that would have wrecked my brain. I wouldn't have been able to physically or mentally handle it. And God works in mysterious ways. The baby was gone. And I literally, it's so interesting, once again, did not take care of myself, because I should have gone to the hospital. I should have had myself checked out, having gone through that. I should have sought medical help in regards to my mental status. I knew I was dealing with something mentally, but I didn't. My whole mode was, I'm a mom. I have to take care of my child. This is my number one goal. God has given me something to do. I knew Elijah was special, and I knew I needed to give him my all and my best. And so I was focused in on taking care of him. And as a result, Tamara and I teamed together and did that. And, for the years, literally, I believe that's why I personally checked out and was only taking care of what was right here in front of me, and completely negate the fact that, okay, your body's telling you something's going on. You're having headaches. Something's not right. You're not happy. you're self-medicating yourself and you're thinking you're happy. You're trying to think yourself happy, but it's not working. And it does sadden my heart that, you had to live with me in that mental state.
Well, no, that's, actually, so for me, I think I should have been more aware. I was, like I said, we were
raising a child.
We were raising a child
with special needs.
By ourselves, special needs, but at the same time, I think I should have been a little bit more tapped in. I was concerned about my ministry and all that, which is okay, but that should have really taken a back seat in retrospect of looking back. And, God worked it out in my foolishness, I think, because, we always say we have to find this balance. And I could have still devoted my time to the Lord, but I think, to be honest, I was devoting my time to people, thinking I was devoting my time to the Lord. And really, the church, not to get negative on the church, but one of the difficult aspects of depression and being, a Christian, being a person of faith, is that the church challenges you on that aspect that, no Christian gets depression. Well, that's not true. And nowhere in the word did it indicate that you weren't going to get depression. And when you do get it, the insensitivity sometimes that result from different individuals within the ministry is quite sometimes defeating and as well not beneficial. And so I think now many ministries are coming to the forefront and dealing with a lot of depression, understanding that a lot of their saints are experiencing these episodes, and even in my ministry, we have a number of different people that have chemical imbalances and, really understanding how to treat them. And, because in really staunch, sort of apostolic movement or in, some other additional sects that are out there don't believe in taking medicine to really deal with the issue. That means you have a lack of faith and all that. Well, that's
I
not.
didn't tell anyone that I was taking medication.
Right, yeah, and that
I felt ashamed, honestly.
Yeah, right. The shame of that, which shouldn't happen, and you do that at the expense of your family. And so you got to be really careful about that. And so I should have been a little bit more tapped in. And so from my perspective, I didn't notice until actually she had given a testimony at church and said that, she was in that state. I knew something was going on, but, to really associate it, when you're in the moment, when you're in those situations, you don't really see or sort of feel it. You notice it, but at the same time, for a man, you have a job to do. You're working, you're trying to take care of family. Then we were dealing with Elijah at the time, so that was difficult. Trying to figure out what he has, and then we had Sarah, and poor Sarah. I feel so sorry for her because she really, God must know, because she ended up. How can you say, she ended up almost taking care of herself. She ended up raising herself.
She probably trained herself.
I don't want to say that we didn't raise her, but she did. I mean,
she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, she ended up picking up a lot of skill sets that we didn't teach her, to be honest with you. But at the same time, we were trying to do our best. And
it's all parents do.
Yeah, I was trying to really be in tune, and like I said, trying to balance that family, ministry, and then also the relationship that you have with your wife. And so it was quite difficult. And I felt bad once, she had stood up and testified in church about she had depression. I was trying to figure out, man, when did it happen? I wasn't tapped in. And so if I can help any husband that's out there, make sure that you're really, sort of tapped in and making sure that y'all communicating. So that's one aspect, is that we thought we were communicating. I guess thought we were, and we weren't, because if we were, I think she would have been able to tell me. So the fact that she wasn't in a space where she felt comfortable telling me means that, she just didn't trust me with the information, which made me feel bad too as well. And so making sure that you guys are communicating, which is a significant pillar within a marriage. Trust, being able to trust someone with that type of information and what they do with that information. And I think if she'd have told me, then for me, I would have stopped everything. So that would have been helpful. Not everything. Put it this way: those things that weren't going to be beneficial, meaning that I wouldn't have been trying to please people in the ministry. Not, instead, I should have been doing the work of a priest and taking care of home, and which I thought I was by just working. In the man's mind, sometimes it's, well, I'm working. Well, yeah, that's your reasonable duty. You got to work in the house, but then there are additional aspects that you must take care of as well. And so you got to take care of your children, and you got to take care of your wife. In addition to bringing in the money, it's not just about bringing in the money. God requires that you treat your wife like Jesus treats the church. And so that means an immense amount of love has to be displayed. And so I think if I can give any husband a window into trying to deal with that situation, or not even being aware. So that's the thing. Become aware of where your spouse is, in their life. Being aware of the disposition, the changes that can happen, and even a small amount of changes. I noticed, she was sleeping a lot, and we were having a lot of arguments, and there was no focus, and she had just tapped out, but we're there. And so in your vows, it's for better or for worse. So you got to try to figure that out. So, with that said, so give an indication of why you didn't tell me early on. What was your reason?
Well, you know what? I actually, as you were speaking, I remember when we lived in Herndon. So this was like 15 years ago, or maybe 16 years ago. I actually did seek help, medical help. I called around looking for a psychologist or a counselor, and I don't know what happened, but I remember doing it, making the move to actually seek help, but then I dropped the ball, and I must have got distracted with something else, and I didn't follow through. So I knew at that point I needed help. Yeah. And actually, I remember when it was after I had Sarah, because I went through postpartum depression after I had Sarah, and it didn't last very long, but I remember having some really terrible thoughts that I knew, okay, this is not Jamie Hudson, this is not who I am. And because I researched, looking up the research, I realized, okay, I'm dealing with postpartum depression, and these are some of the signs in regards to my thought process was way left field. Like, I literally actively had to, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, and this is so transparent, it's almost scary. I had to take the knives out of the kitchen in plain sight. Like, this was when we lived in Chaplain Place. I had to take them off the countertops because I did not want them to be in my eye view, because I didn't trust my thoughts. And I was like, girl, this is not who you are. I put them away, and yeah, we were at that point, and it wasn't because I was gonna, yourself, but that was scary for me to even think that I had to remove them off the countertop, because I didn't want to look at them, because I felt like looking at them made me think of things that were not pleasing to what I know God's will was for my life. And that was dramatically like, girl, no, we're not going there.
So with that, you can get a sense of the abundance of pressure or the significant amount of pressure that can come with that, right? And even, with that, even sort of having the faith and the Spirit of God, you see sort of where your imagination can take you. Now imagine someone that doesn't have God and where they are in their life, but even the fact that she has a relationship with God. Now, there was some additional pressure on top of that. So just imagine the additional pressure coming and overwhelming you like an immense wave or a continual wave, and you just can't get yourself to swim against that current. And so just imagine, I could just imagine her going through that type of situation. And even though I was there, it still probably felt as though she was alone in that moment, although she had someone there. So I can only imagine an individual that don't even have anyone there or don't have anyone to turn to, whether it be God or whether it be family, don't feel like. And so I think that's, I don't have a sense of what depression is, because I don't think I've gone through it. I mean, I think I had moments of times of, challenge, and I had, trying to figure things out. I had, and I don't think, for me, I don't think you can call it depression. And what somebody else may diagnose it with depression, but I can't diagnose myself. But
No.
There were times where, I've always been sort of happy and sort of moved forward. And I never got to a point where I thought that I was going to kill myself. So that's why I don't think it's that. But it doesn't have to be where you get to the point where you're going to kill yourself. It can be where your disposition just totally changed. Those things that you normally do, you don't do anymore.
You lose interest.
You lose interest.
Yes, in your activities.
Your activities.
Yeah.
I remember a space and time in my ministry where I just didn't want to just be at church. What was, it wasn't helping me. It wasn't moving me forward. And in that space, I was just not happy. I don't think I was depressed. I just wasn't happy. I think that was God's way of urging me forward in the ministry and saying that you need a little bit more, and this is just routine. And I don't want to, and God was letting me know, I don't want a routine relationship. And so, you don't want to give God a routine relationship. And the same way with your spouse, you don't want to give your spouse a routine relationship. And I think going through our being transparent, going through those periods, I think it was sort of routine and trying to get our footing when we were newly married. And so really making sure, if I can tell any couple, making sure that you have, a couple that you can turn to in those times, somebody that can mentor you through your situations and questions that you can have, and make sure that it's someone that you trust and that actually has experience, not your equal, someone that's been married for like 1 or 2 years, find someone that's been married for a long period of time that you can sort of bounce questions off of and sort of get a sense of how their marriage sort of overcame a great deal of challenges, because all marriages have challenges, right? I don't think there's a marriage out there that doesn't have challenges. And so it's the way in which you deal with those challenges. And so even though I wasn't fully tapped in, I was tapped in, but not fully tapped in, as the buy-in, I guess, I was willing to try to maneuver my way out of this situation, see how we can get out of it. But I was, at the same time, when she said that she had been feeling depressed, I was upset, but at the same time happy. I was upset at the fact that that she couldn't trust me enough to tell me. And then secondly, it was way after the fact though, when she said it, when she gave that testimony, she had already been through spaces of depression, and this was after she had experienced her aneurysm. So even so, you can experience, I mean, she can tell you whether or not she had bouts of depression that she was going through, trying to recover from that aneurysm, which was devastating for our family. And so it was quite difficult, probably for my wife, and she can tell you whether or not that whole span of time, what she was going through and how she felt
That was difficult.
As a result of the sickness, because she couldn't do different things. But at that time, I was fully tapped in by then. by that time, I was fully tapped in and was really cognizant of what was going on. So.
And it's interesting because after the aneurysm, I completely stopped taking the Zoloft. I was no longer taking it. In my mind, I was like, look, the Lord has saved me from this subarachnoid hemorrhage, and I have work to do. And I remember having these conversations with the Lord. I know I have work to do because I have to get my body back. And your body will regenerate itself. Your cells regenerate themselves. You just have to put the work in. And so I remember, yes, I had sad days, but there was a prayer line that I would get on, and they're in the Midwest. So on Eastern Standard Time, it was like 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning, I think. I think it was 6:30 in the morning, and I would listen to this prayer and every morning for about 45 minutes to an hour. That literally was my lifeline. And I started walking, and at first my husband, I could only walk to like down the street.
Oh, yeah.
So I started walking down the street because I didn't have any endurance. Yeah. And literally I'd walk down the street, come back home, and I'd get in the bed and I'd lay down. And I literally had to stay in the bed the rest of the day because my endurance level was so low. I was so exhausted. The aneurysm literally wiped my body out. But it was important for me to take that process and go through those steps because I needed to get back in tune with who I was and who God had called me to be as a mother, as a wife, as a person, as an individual. I needed to find Jamie. And after that, my husband started driving me up the street, which was a mile, dropping me off at, I think it was McDonald's, and then I would walk back home. So I knew, I think it was a half a mile. I could walk a half a mile. And then over a couple months, I could walk up to McDonald's and then back home. And I was increasing my time and increasing my endurance. And all during this time, I was on this prayer line, and it was feeding my spirit. And so I was not only being mentally fed, spiritually fed, but physically fed too. And that was just really pushing me. And it gave me so much hope. Oh my goodness, it gave me so much hope. And that literally that pushed me to a place of, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this. And this is going to be okay. And during that time period, I was by myself. I was in the house. I could hear my kids. I couldn't take a lot of light. I couldn't take a lot of sound. All of that gave me headaches and hurt. I was in a lot of pain. I had no idea I was in chronic pain until the chronic pain had left. I had pain almost every single day for like 3 or 4 years after the aneurysm in some part of my body. But I can honestly say God healed me. And I did not allow my mind to focus on that pain. I didn't allow my mind, I was aware of it because I did not I took medication, but I was not taking large doses of medication for the pain because I needed to feel what I was feeling, not only in the mentally, but physically. I needed to feel that pain so that I could be fully aware of what's going on right here. And over that time period, it literally, I kept doing the work, and it did dissipate. And now, every now and then I get a headache. I have some issues, and then I have to check in. Girl, what are you doing? Have you been exercising? Have you been eating right? Have you, are you writing? Are you focusing in? Are you having your prayer time? Are you giving God enough time to actually settle your mind? It's a lot of steps, but it's necessary to be completely balanced. And if I don't do it, I start seeing it in my life. I start seeing it fall, my life like literally start crumbling.
Yeah.
Because there has to be balance. And you asked me about trusting you with the information.
Right, yeah.
I really don't know if it was so much about trusting. I think it was more so about I didn't want to bother you.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you were so focused. You do research, and I see you work. You're working, and it takes a lot of time to do what you do, to research, to write the grants. You know, you're going to Howard, coming back home. It was the traveling. I didn't want to bother you. Then we have our kids that we're dealing with, and they all individually had different things that they were dealing with. In my mind, I wanted to be that strong wife and not bother you with that information.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be that happy place for you to fall and to be, quote unquote, your helpmate. And
well, it's difficult. Yeah. So, you know, like I tell her, you know, you just got to be able to trust me with the information. So, and it's, you know, and I'll be okay, you know, because what it affords the husband, at least for me, I can't say for anyone else, you have to be able to shift in that moment. And what becomes important, meaning that she becomes, not that she wasn't, is that a little bit more emphasis would have to be put on it, you know. And you know, I'm not an expert in depression, so obviously, and I don't, you know, I'm not going to know all the signs, and when you're in it, it's kind of hard to sort of figure out, okay, what's going on, you know, and there are very subtle signs that begin to happen, and those things you have to be able to pick up. And I think the other thing that is really important is getting beyond people, right? And I think that's it. You got to just get beyond people, people in the church, people in your family, your friends, getting beyond people and what they think, getting beyond their perception of the way they think you should live your life.
And that's what I like to say that you only get one life.
You only get one life.
This is it. And when you stand before God, who are you going to be standing? Who else is going to be there with you?
Right.
It's just going to be you.
Right.
So you are responsible for you. You have to, you know, you have to own that.
Because people will dictate how you respond, how you treat your wife, and what you should be doing, and their life can be in shambles, and they trying to tell you how to live your life. And they don't, you know, they like could be topsy-turvy, and they telling you how to live your life, and you know. And I'm not saying get wise counsel, and that's what I mean. Get wise. I have very, very good friend, good mentor is no longer living with us, and Eldon Preston Summers was a terrific individual, mentor who very sadly is not with us anymore, who passed away recently. And so, you know, he provided wise counsel, someone in the church who had been married for a while, actually lost his wife, so he experienced his first wife. So he experienced tragedy early on, and then he lost his second wife as well. So he experienced some great tragedy, but still had faith enough to move forward. And I can only imagine in those. And you know, he had kids, and by the time I met him, his kids were adults, and they had moved out. But he was someone that I can bounce things off of, and he was very wise. You know, look, go home to your family. You know, make sure you know. Always say, you know, you don't have to spend money to spend time with your wife. You know, he would give some good examples, and which were excellent. You know, go to the park, do this, do that. Some very excellent examples. You know, find some balance, and he wasn't forcing me to be in the church, although he was my pastor at the time. You know, before that, he was a really good friend. He was an elder. He was somebody was senior to me in the ministry, but he provided some very wise counsel. And you know, the word always reminds us, you know, if you want wisdom, get wisdom, but with the wisdom, get understanding. And so, try to understand the dynamics of what you're going through. And so, depression is real because, as she said, your imagination can run wild, and before you know it, you know, she could have taken her life, not only her life, but her kids as well. And that has happened. That has happened in many families, and because it wasn't taken care of, it was thought of as being trivial. Some women are, strong, meaning that even when they do go through depression, they just, just women of faith, you got to go through it. But every person is not the same. And I don't think you should superimpose your experience upon somebody else's experience, right? So those are, different experiences. And what you need to do is be compassionate about where that person is and try to understand where they are, and then try to provide some remedy, meaning, go get help, right? Don't allow that person to stay in that position and say, well, just pray. Yes, prayer is essential. That's really important. I'm not, praying is important. Journaling is important. Fasting is important. Reading the word is important. But also get some additional help. It's really important that you do that. And because all of that combined is going to make for such a successful way forward. And be cognizant of the fact that sometimes depression may not leave and you may be predisposed to it. And if that's the case, try to apply appropriate coping mechanisms, because I know a number of individuals that are going through depression. They have coping mechanisms, but they're not the appropriate ones. Drugs is not, meaning illicit drugs. They are not the appropriate mechanism, right? Sexual promiscuity is not an appropriate way to really fill that void. And, doing things that put your life in danger, that's just not, it's not going to fill the void. But understand that there are ways in which the void can be filled. That deep black hole can be filled. And that's with help. And that's through, the prayer. That's through the reading of the word. And so if you're looking at this video and you don't know God as your Lord and Savior, that would be one of the first steps to really getting some semblance of peace. But then secondly, make sure that with developing that relationship and being redeemed by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, is to also get some additional help that can help you, get you through. And then being open, being transparent, being able to trust someone with the information.
I don't know if you remember this, but we actually had a conversation early in our marriage about depression and suicidal thoughts, and I will never forget your response. And it was, you told me, anybody, when someone takes their life in their own hands, that is so selfish, because they're leaving behind people that truly love them and don't understand, or probably didn't know that they were in that state of mind. And so that always rang in the back of my head, that word, selfish. Selfish. And then, we don't own ourselves. We are the image of God, and we need to replicate that. Yeah. And it's important to remember and to be mindful that we truly need to have a connection, a spiritual connection with God, a relationship. And God definitely will take care of us. And I don't know if I've shared this story with you. I was at the lowest of the lowest of the lowest. And at this point, I do believe I had not taken any type of medication. I had not sought help. And the reason why, I just hadn't sought help at this time. But I remember having this clear plan in my mind that I was sitting in church, and we were this perfect family, my husband, myself, my kids, all in a row, we were all in a row, sitting in church, and I was sitting there, face forward, in my thoughts. When I go home today, I am going to go upstairs, and there was a bottle of PM Tylenol. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to lay down, and everything will be over. I'll be done. And it was I know this sounds crazy, but that was my thought, and I was serious. I'm sitting in church having this thought. Now, in that, as soon as I thought that thought, our youngest son, Daniel, leaned over and said, Mommy, I want to get baptized today. And literally, I knew that was God because no one knew my thoughts but God. He knows our thoughts.
Yes.
And that day, instantly, God was like, girl, what are you thinking? This is a pivotal moment in your son's life. Go into mommy mode, get yourself together. And so I started talking to him, and I remember leaning over to my husband and telling him, and I can't believe I just told that story, but you know, it is what it is. It's transparency. I don't know if you knew that. I don't think I've ever told you that.
No, I don't think so.
But that was, God knew. God knew. And he was like, okay, girl, you need to get it together. But then after that, Daniel, he did get baptized. And tomorrow he baptized him. And we actually had plans to go to the Mind Institute in California. And so after that, it was in the springtime, we went and that's where I had met the doctors, and the doctors began to talk to me about, you know, my mental thoughts and am I dealing with depression? And yeah, it opened up the conversation. And because I had that conversation and they pushed it and they said, look, your serotonin levels need to be elevated because you have a chemical imbalance, and it's okay. It's okay. It happens. You are dealing with a predisposed genetic disorder, and that decreases your serotonin levels. So you're going to need something to help increase those. And this medication is going to do it. And I was terrified to take it, terrified to tell anybody I was taking it. I thought people were going to think I was crazy. You're supposed to be, you know, a woman of God. What are you taking medication for? Antidepressant and anti-anxiety. Well, I need help. And I am spiraling out of control. And I have a life to live. I have children to raise. I have goals and aspirations, and there's things that I want to do in life, and I'm having difficulty doing it. And that helped. That helped.
So as you can see, you know, depression is really serious. And so today we tried to be as transparent as possible about, you know, sort of the experience that that my wife has went through in terms of depression, and me, a byproduct by being a husband. And so there are several things that we talked about today, and that is making sure that you can trust someone with information, making sure that you just get help as well. Make sure you just get beyond people, and that's important. And then making sure that you have the proper coping mechanisms in place that can help you. And so with my wife, she's going to always be in a space because she has anxiety. That's just, you know, and that's the result of sort of the predisposition of the genetic condition that she has. And so she has a premutation, and then that premutation causes her to have a significant amount of anxiety, and she's shy and things of that nature. And so people may take it the wrong way, but that's just who she is. And she gets, God has to really push her forward, and so it takes her like several days just to, get up the courage to do something. But all jokes aside, we want to encourage you, all those that are out there, make sure that you get help. Husbands, make sure that you're tapped into your wife, and making sure that you notice just the subtleties of what's going on with your spouse, and then also be as understanding and compassionate as possible. And trying to help guide your spouse through it. And even if it's on the flip side for the wife, and making sure that you as well, because men do go through depression as well, quite significantly. And because we are always on that treadmill, and we do have internal sensitivities that we don't tap into. So we just want to come today just to be able to share our story with you. We hope that it was encouraging. We hope that it was uplifting, but most importantly as well, we hope that it was informational, informative, and as transparent as we can get. We can't tell you everything. We can tell you the most important aspects of what happened during that particular time that can actually help guide someone through their situation. Yeah. All right. So at this time, the Hudson Connection is going to sign off. We will provide some information within this video in terms of if you have depression, who to call and how to reach out. Any hotlines, we'll be able to provide that for you as well. If you have time in your schedule as well, and you want to be able to visit the ministry, this is beside the Hudson Connection, beside this video, but I also want to offer an opportunity to those who are seeking the Lord and trying to gain a relationship with Him. If you're within the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, or the Knoxville, Maryland area, please come and visit St. Mark's Apostolic Church at 4312 St. Mark's Road in Knoxville, Maryland. Or if you have any questions or concerns, make sure you put them in the comment section as well, and we'll be able to get back to you. I'll be able to pray with you, anything that you want to do, or you can send an email to stmarksaf@gmail.com, stmarksaf@gmail.com. Well, we thank you for your time and attention. Hopefully this was uplifting, informative, and most importantly, transparent, and that you've gained a perspective about what it is to go through depression as a couple. Thank you, and goodbye. Bye-bye.